And away we go. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome one and all to Coffee Talk. It is time once again for Coffee Talk Live, where we will be having some discussion about what is going on in the world today, taking a look at some clips from the news and having some dialogue with those of you who are able to join us for the live portion. And you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on YouTube on Coffee Talk and on Prepper University. That's at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University, as well as X, formerly known as Twitter. You can find me there at Coffee Talk Chat. You can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. There it is. And of course, I do try to read through as many of the comments as is reasonable for the benefit of those of you. Hold on a second. For the benefit of those of you who are listening and not able to see. Sorry, I had a kitten tangled up in the cables there. Monkey, everybody. Say hi, Monkey. Monkey's a good boy, but he's extremely rambunctious. More so than a lot of other cats that I've worked with, which is why we call him Monkey. He just can't slow down for a second. So I'll go ahead and say hello anyways to some of the people that have been able to join us here thus far. I see Helter is here, Dragon, Brian, Monkey, Jane is here, The Bit is here. Again, as we get ready to jump off. And if you hear that fan, that is the computer fan working overtime because it is hot in here. We lost our air. First we lost the oven. Then we lost the air. The stove works, the oven doesn't, and it would cost damn near $500 to get it fixed. You may as well just replace the whole freaking thing. And then the air went out yesterday. So, and the person is supposed to be coming. And D'Lo is here. Glad you could make it, D'Lo. We asked him, please come before 2 or after 3. And then we just got a message that he'll be here within the next 20 minutes. That's just great. I'm not going anywhere, though. My wife is going to come back early and sort that out so that I can get this knocked out. I said I could postpone it. And she was like, no, don't do that. Just hang in there. And I'm coming. Shiloh is here. Glad you could make it today. Monkey is, will you stop? What is your problem? Go somewhere. Go somewhere and be a cat. As we get ready to jump off into the news today. And yeah, you could have, there's a lot to talk about. A lot of weird stuff going on, a lot of stupid things going on, including this Daily Mail article. And, I can't resist picking on this kind of stuff. Harris mocked for fake Southern accent during Georgia rally. Yeah, that. It doesn't surprise me because she's done this before. She's done it before. And most notably, and I can't help, get out of my teacup. Yeah, it's going to turn into the monkey show here in a minute because he's just being relentless. And Jane says the cat butts are cute. I don't know about that, but usually people say their paws, their little peds are cute. But okay, cat butts. Most notably, and in recent months, was when she did it in France. When she did that in France and she was talking to people with a French accent. And it's like, lady, that's something 5-year-olds do. But back into the article, it says, Vice President Kamala Harris was mocked on Tuesday night for feigning a Southern accent during a campaign rally. Quote, all helped us with the 2020 and we gonna do it again in 2024. Harris told voters, brutally faking a Southern accent that was mocked by social media. Harris commonly slips into a Southern accent when speaking to voters in Southern communities, despite growing up in San Francisco and spending her high school years in Montreal, Canada. That's correct. She was also criticized for deploying a much more prominent Southern accent when talking about her experience on the campaign trail in 2020. Quote, we will tell them we're hanging out in a parking lot this particular Saturday afternoon with Kamala and all our friends, Harris said, extending her vowels during an event in Florida. I know it doesn't do much good to hear me read it like that without a Southern drawl. It says during an event in Fayetteville, North Carolina, Harris also dropped down her drawl when she promised voters to get rid of that tax bill passed by President Trump. The vice president was mocked as fake and pandering by voters in the South, as her accent did not appear to be authentic. You think? She's been doing that for years. Why is anyone surprised? Harris has also deployed a more Southern accent while speaking to Black audiences. That's true also, including her comments about preaching and testifying to the truth. Yeehaw. Preaching and testifying. Oh, snap. God, and there she is with the fraud. He's starting to look more and more like the old man in Poltergeist 2, isn't he? You remember I can't remember the name of the character, but you recall him. Hello there, sweetheart. Are you lost? Does your mama know where you are? Oh man, that's got to be the creepiest guy in cinema history. Quote again, do I see people testifying? She asked during an event in Philadelphia in May with a laugh. Can I get a witness? The tendency to feign a more Southern accent is not uncommon for politicians. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton faced the same criticism for dropping into a drawl speaking to voters in the South during her presidential campaign. That's right, she did that. She did do that on several occasions, Hillary Clinton, because they're phonies. What do you expect? What do you expect? Lantern says Hillary did that in 2016, correct. And Kim said we should call her a chameleon. And Zafeel says, I don't want to hear about people, okay, talking about cat butts. He says Harris is cultural appropriation. Is it Zafeel? Harris is cultural appropriation. Helter says, mind-boggling how politicians view Southern folk as ignorant with their Southern accents until they need their vote. Indeed. Absolutely, indeed. Just because you have a funny accent doesn't mean you're a nitwit. Although I still stand by my belief that most people are not that smart anyways, but still, you don't have to treat them that way. You don't have to treat them that way. Oh, wow, this is a good one. Clinton, I don't feel no ways tired, Clinton said during her failed 2008 presidential campaign, quoting civil rights leader James, I've come too far from where I started from. Yeah, she does that, especially when she visits predominantly Black churches. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was criticized as a total fraud and accused of slipping into Southern drawl during a 2023 event with civil rights organizer Al Sharpton. I'm proud to be a bartender. Ain't nothing wrong with that, Ocasio said, adding with a drawl, this is what change in the country looks like, y'all. I added the y'all part, to be fair. It's like, I can understand. I would, and you hear me do accents and voices and things like that all the time because I'm just being sarcastic. But I wouldn't address a crowd that way, as you're belittling them. You're belittling them. Dragon says she's a talking puppet. The old puppet is broken. The new is being tested for accents. But, I mean, she's been doing that. She's been doing that. Clinton has done that. You know, it's mostly females, isn't it? I've hardly ever heard of a male pulling that kind of crap. Baki says Umar Johnson called it they are going to bring rappers and twerkers to get the black vote. I'm mixed and going for Kennedy. Oh, you're going to vote for Kennedy? Ugh, throw your vote away. No, I'm teasing you. You vote for whoever you want. Personally, I don't trust Kennedy. I don't like him. But that's okay. But yeah, and remember, it was, what is his name? The representative from New York. He started the hip hop division, as you might recall. The hip hop division. The fire marshal there. The fire marshal, the one who pulled the fire alarm in Congress, started the official hip hop division. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. But that's what they're doing. And look at the people that are promoting Kamala right now. When the first place that she went to, look it up, first place that she showcased herself after Biden quit and nominated her was RuPaul. She did a clip with RuPaul. It's the first thing she did was she did a clip with RuPaul. And now that last fundraiser had all these like female rappers twerking and bouncing and carrying on. Brian wants us to vote for him. Write-in ballot. Vote for D's nuts. Remember that was happening so much during the last election cycle that they had to put out a news bulletin and ask people to stop voting for D's nuts. Change your name to D nuts. You could have become president. Yeah, Jane says RuPaul. Yeah, really. I believe that was the first place that she went. Was she did a bit with RuPaul, and where he called for people to give an amen, and I was like, "Are you serious? Are you serious? Amen indeed. Amen indeed." But because you can so trust these people, honey. Get out of the cables. Come here. Come on out from under there. How many times I got to tell you, monkey? Monkey again. Pulling on the cables under the computer. He's going to unplug something, and I'm going to have all kinds of problems. See? It's turned into the cat show. Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much. Hi, darling. Listen, I can't play with you right now, okay? Go somewhere. Not there. Stay away from little girl because she'll kick your butt. Little girl that's not little girl. Excuse me. That's Granny Smith laying on the floor there, taking a nap behind me. Granny Smith doesn't like playing with him. Little girl will, but she's not here. But these people, I mean, the stuff that they do to pander to an audience. The stuff they do to pander to an audience. Now, we're going back here. We're going back to July 13th. And we're going to the situation with Trump again, because there has been more footage revealed. And this is from the perspective directly behind where Trump is standing, okay? This is a video clip. This surfaced like this morning or yesterday. Was it last night or this morning? This video surfaced, all right? And you see the red circle there? That red circle is Thomas. And you can see him walking across that rooftop. Keep in mind that behind this camera at an elevated position are the two snipers that took him out. But they sure didn't notice him, did they? I don't know if there's audio with this. I'm going to go ahead and play the clip, and you can watch. There it is. You see him walking across there? And there he is again. That's him on the roof, setting up. Let me start that over. It's a very short clip, but the cameraman caught it. Jane thinks there was two people on the roof. Well, they're only presenting one. But I've speculated there might have been a second person, even if they didn't show up, because he had a spotting scope with him, but no spotter. I'm going to run that clip again for you so that you can see better. Let me expand that. I'm going to open it up bigger. Okay. Again, red circle. That's Thomas Crooks. And he walks across and he disappears behind this panel. Okay. He disappears behind, that's actually a panel, a transparent panel. It's probably a teleprompter. And so then when the cameraman notices that, he raises his angle because he's like, okay, where did that guy go? And I'm going to run it again. I'm going to run it again here. Walking across, disappears behind the thing. The guy raises the angle. And there he is again on the right. And at that point, you know, again, This camera angle is from behind Trump. It's from behind Trump. And the spotters, the snipers, are above this position. So they should have, if the cameraman down here on the floor, on the stage, could see it, they should have been able to see it. And Justin Case made it. Glad you could join us today, Justin. And I'll run that one more time. It's important for people to see this because it just showcases further the incompetence of what happened. Follow the red circle. There he goes. And then here he comes again. The cameraman finds him again on the right. Very short clip, but it makes a very powerful point. Makes a very powerful point. Helta says Secret Service criticized the local police department for not seeing crooks lying on the roof when they had an even clearer view of him running across the roof. Makes the Secret Service look even more guilty. Well, they're playing the blame game, and regardless of whether or not the police were closer, the Secret Service were overseeing everything. Whatever the police department was doing fell under their jurisdiction. Jane says also the police, Secret Service, and SWAT in Butler are not communicating very well. No, because everybody wants to blame everyone else. And Zafel says if he was better of a sniper, he would have been wearing safety orange with a reflective vest. Yeah, okay. They still wouldn't have seen him. Dragon says, first rule of thumb, never believe anything the government has to say or cover up for. Yeah. They've been covering up for as far back as history records. I've made the argument that you can even find cover-ups during the Revolutionary War. Not the Revolutionary War. I was going to say the Civil War. I'm sure there's cover-ups in the Revolutionary War. But in the Civil War, I brought it up specifically, Abraham Lincoln, everybody's favorite president. There was a mass execution of more than 300 Native Indians. And the White House at that time, or the executive branch under Lincoln, hid that and had the media portray it as a mass execution of 30. Newspapers at the time, obviously, because they didn't want people to realize that they were willing to hang 300 people at the same time. Big cover-up at the time. Also, the thousands of anti-war protesters that were arrested and detained for the length of the war without bail, without court hearing, without anything. A complete violation of the Constitution. You never read about that in the history books, do you? You never hear about that. But that was covered up during the Lincoln administration. So how far back does it go? How far back does it go? Jumping to the Olympics here really quickly, because this happened and now it's blowing up on social media. A couple of things are actually, and this is that this is a Metro article. There's that one of those transmogrified boxers right there. This is the where the hell was this person from? I forgot. Algeria, right? This is the boxer from Algeria who identifies. It says, Italy's PM blasts Olympics after female boxer quits fight versus Iman Khalif. All right. Did you see this? This is appalling. Here's a good look at Iman. 5 o'clock shadow and all. And Jane says, is that a woman boxer? Well, Iman thinks he is. And the Olympic Committee accepted it, even though he's been disqualified in the past for having really high testosterone levels because he's XY chromosome, which means what? Which means what? And Zfiel, I'll put that comment up for you there. There he is. 30 seconds into this match. 30 seconds. And this is it right here. Dude lands a punch on Italy's hopeful that damn near took her head off. Hit her so hard, she quit. So they threw the towel in at the 46-second mark. When the first punch that made solid contact, she realized she was hopelessly mismatched, and she was afraid for her safety. She feared for her safety. They threw in the towel, and then she broke down. She fell to her knees and sobbed in the middle of the ring. The very first solid connecting punch, 30 seconds in, and she knew she didn't stand a chance. Probably never been hit that hard in her life. And there's Iman. Totally a woman. I promise you. Totally a woman. And that is horrible. Article reads, I haven't even read the article yet. Haven't even read the article yet. Be quiet. That beeping is the alarm because my wife is here and she's got the door open for the person with the air conditioning. See if I can quiet that. So back to the article, and again, this is by Metro. Italy's Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has slammed the decision to allow Iman Khalif to compete in the women's boxing after Angela Carini abandoned her fight against the Algerian after just 46 seconds on Thursday. Khalif, who competed at the Tokyo Games in 2021 and was disqualified from the finals in the Women's World Championships last year for failing International Boxing Association eligibility rules, which prevents athletes from XY chromosomes from participating in women's events. However, the Algerian has been cleared to compete at her second Olympics, as the competition is run by the International Olympic Committee now, which has released a statement insisting that all boxers comply with the competition's eligibility and entry regulations. But Khalif's first appearance in Paris lasted less than a minute after Carini waved off the fight, having taken a heavy punch in the face inside of 30 seconds. So 30 seconds in. She realized it was hopeless and threw in the towel. And I feel really bad for her. Sven says it's a matter of time before one of those dudes kills one of those girls. It could happen. You could be seriously, and I've seen some of these females seriously injured in these competitions with these transmogrified athletes. And Dragon wants to see Mike Tyson put on a wig and challenge her to a fight. That's exactly what my wife said earlier. Jane says, I'm confused. I know about my sexuality, but so confused on the other ones. I heard there were like 13. Yeah, according to Facebook, there's like 64. Don't you worry, Jane. There are 2, okay? No matter what anybody tells you, all you have to do is look at the biology. You can make an argument for 3 when you look at the insect world, where there are true hermaphrodites, like asexual insects, like slugs that can impregnate themselves. But you usually only see that with very specific insects or aquatic animals, less than a dozen out of some almost 14,000 species. Okay? Don't let people confuse you. Baki says, you know what? 2 can play that game. If we can identify as anything, I identify as the president. And James says, hit the thumbs up. Please do if you don't mind. Helta says, the fact that trans person felt the need to fight in the lower division means that they couldn't cut it in the big leagues. Correct. Correct. Monkey says these are people that never that good at their own sex, so they got to switch sides so they can be stunning and brave. Jane says I sound like her parents. Maybe. Cut that out. Maybe. Your parents might be right then. But there it is. That's the punch that did it. She got hit so hard that she realized, oh my God, I am seriously outclassed. Plus, look at that reach. Dude's arm is obviously longer than hers, but which counts for quite a bit. But that first punch was enough, and she was like, oh my God, I can't do this. I can't do this. And what a shame. I feel really bad for her, because you have to imagine, and there she is, because she had a little breakdown. And the warden is here. She had a breakdown and fell out in the ring. Carini. That's Carini in the blue, obviously, in front of Goliath. Collapsed. And again, I feel bad for her. I feel bad for all of these athletes. Because you got to think, I mean, she's probably spent decades, or not decades necessarily, but, maybe 10 years or more, right? Training for this. To have it crushed. She goes as far as being able to make it to the Olympics, and it gets crushed because of how hopelessly mismatched it was. And this is the argument that was being made by the coach. We read the article yesterday, the team leader from the Australian boxing team, that said, pound for pound, a male has about 75% more upper body muscle mass and 90% more strength than a female counterpart in the same weight class. And that is a massive advantage that you're not going to be able to correct with testosterone blockers. Okay? It's not going to cut it. Eric says it's sad because these athletes give up a normal life to get to this point only to be marginalized on the world stage. Sorry about that beeping. They keep setting it off, but I mean, the work's got to get done, right? I feel really bad for her, and I feel really bad for a lot of other female athletes that are going through this. I mean, what are you going to do? And there's your decision. Look at Khalif smiling. He's very proud of himself. Very proud of himself, you can tell. Jane says, I thought Mike Tyson and Jake Paul were going to box. Yeah, I guess, that's been canceled so far as I understand. They're not going to go through with it after all. And Urban Angst has made it today. This, on top of what happened in the triathlon, also is pretty damn bad. Because the triathletes are complaining now after having done the swim about how filthy the water was. I don't have the article pulled up, but that was a major complaint, that the water was absolutely filthy. They could feel things floating in it while they were swimming, and they were absolutely appalled and disgusted with the condition of the river. And this is after, I mean, Paris ain't as clean as you think, okay? Keep in mind that that's the condition of the river after they spent €1 billion. €1 billion. All right. That's $1.8 million. 1.08, so 1,080,000, because the euro and the US dollar are fairly close. So $1 billion trying to clean the river. Not the pool. Zayfiel says that the French let the dogs use the pool before the swimmers. Making a joke, but no, it was a triathlon. They have to swim in a river. And the river was so filthy. And Urban says, in the end, no matter the consequences, the biological females are making a decision to support the degeneracy by stepping onto the mat. Yeah, the only way that they're going to make, he goes on to say, there should be a full boycott by every female boxer, swimmer, or whatever. And we've been seeing that off and on with certain people refusing to compete when they find out they're going to be going against a transmogrified, and I use that term purposely because of the algorithm, but transmogrified opponent, and they're like, nah, we're not doing that. We're not doing that. I'm not gonna compete. We've been seeing more people bow out. And Sven says lefties are too stupid to do anything but spend money. Oh, they love spending money, especially not when it's not theirs. If it's your tax dollars, it's open season on your tax dollars, ladies and gentlemen. And as I've said before, as a lawmaker, your first order of business, I see Monkey has resigned himself to the chair. It's kind of hard to see him back there because he's so dark. Heidi says, whatever would make them think Paris is clean? Yeah, well, yeah, good question. But they convinced the Olympic Committee that they'd have it cleaned up, and they could not do it. But they love spending your money. They love spending your money. And we're going to jump to a Fox News article that ties in with that. Former leader, I love showcasing it when someone gets tied up in this. Former leader of San Francisco nonprofit arrested for alleged misuse of taxpayer funds on parties and trips. Here we go again. And I'm pulling up something like this, literally every week. I'm finding at least one story of corruption from some lawmaker or somebody involved in city, state, federal government misusing tax funds. So here we are. After a months-long investigation, the former executive director of a now defunct, San Francisco nonprofit was arrested Tuesday on dozens of felony charges related to the alleged misuse of over $700,000 in public funds, according to San Francisco's district attorney's office. Kyra Worthy. She's worthy. Her name says so. Kyra Worthy, a resident of Richmond, California, has been charged with misappropriation of public money, grand theft by embezzlement, submitting fraudulent invoices, wage theft, and writing fraudulent checks while she was the head of San Francisco SAFE, a 48-year-old nonprofit that aimed to enhance safety and crime prevention in San Francisco in partnership with who? With the city police department. Yeah, how'd that work? 48-year legacy ruined. The DA's office investigators determined an audit by the San Francisco Office of the Comptroller revealed Worthy misspent at least $80,000 in grant funds from the San Francisco Police Department on expenses such as luxury gift boxes, a Lake Tahoe trip, parking fees, and perms and ride-hailing services. The complaint also alleges Worthy spent nearly $56,000 of the non-profit's funds on a holiday party. She threw a $56,000 party for herself. Would you like to see her? You want to see Kyra Worthy? There she is. Kyra Worthy, everyone. Kyra Worthy. Baki says, is anyone else fascinated by the double binds the elite get when people, the elite get people into mentally? If women complain, people can say they're anti-LGB, and if women don't complain, they have to box men, a double blind. But there she is with the police department, a nonprofit connected to the San Francisco government, connected to the San Francisco Police Department, that is supposed to be spending money on safety or some shit, that's been around for 48 years and is now defunct because of this. And Jane says, snafu, situation normal, all funked up. We'll put it that way. Snafu. In the yellow dress, correct, Jane. Helter says, Democrat utopia, creating and enforcing systemic problems. I'll share something with you here real quick, Jane, and we'll get back to the article. Speaking of snafu, right? You want to know where that comes from? Hold on a second. Run to the DVD shelf real quick. The complete uncensored snafu. These are animated shorts created by Dr. Seuss during World War II to be shown to soldiers. And some of them are very racy. It's extremely adult themed. Extremely adult themed. And they have a different one. I don't have it, but they have a different one for the Navy. So this is the Army one, and they have another one for the Navy that has different animated shorts on it. But crazy stuff, like if you can imagine a Dr. Seuss, rhyming verse with Seuss-looking characters talking about protecting your willy so you don't get syphilis kind of stuff. Crazy. But anyways, back to the article. Back to the article now that we're done with that rabbit hole. There she is. Kyra worthy, not so worthy after all. Can you imagine stealing funds from a nonprofit to spend $56,000 on a party for yourself? Oh, wow. Quote, she is the executive director, the head of this organization, and no one is overseeing that. And it's very shocking and just sad. There needs to be some oversight, a board that is this is a total misuse of money and total gross incompetence, according to Gelman. Oh yeah, so waste more money on a board to oversee. Yeah, what if she's receiving taxpayer money? Somebody should have already been keeping an eye on her. If she's absorbing taxpayer funds, somebody should have already been doing her books. You don't need a committee to keep them accountable, or you shouldn't. That's just wasting more taxpayer money. $700,000. $700,000. A complaint alleges Worthy stopped paying payroll taxes for 27 employees from September 2023 to January 2024. When the nonprofit closed its doors over the course of 4 months, the alleged wage theft totaled about $80,000. Worthy also received more than $500,000 in public dollars from the city's Office of Economic and Workforce Development and allegedly never paid it to the employees of partner organizers. Can you imagine that? Spending $80,000 though, because they highlighted those two. $80,000 on luxury gift boxes, a trip to Lake Tahoe, parking fees, ride-hailing services, perms, her hair, and a $56,000 party. Who throws a $56,000 party? Oh, man. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. But I always like to showcase these sorts of things. It's important to consider. Very important to consider. I wonder who attended that party. That's something that I would like to know. I'd like to know who attended that party. Another pet peeve of mine, exposed, electric vehicles. Failing again, Western Journal article. School district turns back to diesel after attempt to convert bus fleet to electric proves disastrous. Nature Nerd says a $56,000 party is just stupid. You can't get me to spend $56 on a party. Yep, another fleet of electric vehicles paid for with taxpayer funds, mothballed. I'm pulling up something like this almost every week now. Affluent liberals who do nearly anything to parade their own perceived moral virtue, including fleecing their neighbors at gunpoint. In the end, however, the only thing on parade is tragicomic liberalism. That's a new word, tragicomic. On July 25th, Megan Davey Lemarzi, Inspector General of Montgomery County, Maryland, issued a blistering memorandum regarding his office's OIG investigation into Montgomery County Public Schools' catastrophic management of an electric bus contract, which has cost taxpayers millions and forced MCPS to rely on diesel buses after all. On February 23, 2021, as part of its commitment to sustainability, MCPS announced it was replacing 326 diesel school buses with electric buses. The ambitious purchase came at a cost of $168,684,990. I will remind you, an electric school bus costs between 4 and 5 times its diesel counterpart. Okay? That is $168,684,990 taxpayer dollars to buy 326 electric school buses that they now have to mothball because they don't work. So Montgomery County ranks as third wealthiest county in Maryland with a median household income of $125,000. Not anymore. In the 2020 election, President Joe Biden won Montgomery County by a staggering 60% points per political. And that's really interesting. That's really interesting. And it's going to tie into something else I wanted to talk about if I have time here. Coming up. Okay, because that's what we're talking about, Maryland here. So, where are we here? With this in mind, MCPS should have assessed fees as it would have done under a diesel bus contract, but it did not do so, which cost an additional $1.8 million. That's maintenance fees, which is much higher. You know, you're saying, oh, you're using less electricity, but keep in mind that the price that was talked about was just the purchasing of the buses at $168 million plus. Then you've got to wire up a bus yard. Okay. You have to wire up a bus yard to accommodate them. You have to pay for the electricity. And then the maintenance on these things is insane. And Z-Fuel says, don't cover these schools selling their school buses. You can get some nice diesel engines at this huge vehicle for pennies on the dollar. Yeah, because when a diesel bus, I don't know what the rule is for an electric bus, but with a diesel bus, and I used to drive a school bus, when it passes a certain mileage point, they sell it for pennies on the dollar. Most of them actually get sold to Mexico. When I worked for Durham, they said the majority of them were purchased by a Mexican company, and they caravan them south of the border. But yeah, you can buy them for 10% of the value. As we continue on here, it says mechanical and or charging infrastructure issues resulted in buses not being able to run routes on more than 280 instances from February 10th, 2022 through March 31st, 2024. And yet, despite the contractor's repeated failures to service the buses, MCPS inexplicitly assessed no fees, and that decision cost taxpayers another $372,000. Incredibly, lost fees alone cost taxpayers more than $2.1 million. And then MCPS had to spend another 15 million on 90 additional diesel buses to cover the shortfall. So they ended up buying diesel buses because the electric buses weren't working, and now they're going to replace them completely. Jane says, I heard the e-car batteries are 20,000 each. Buses probably are lots more. And they emit radiation. That's embarrassing. That is so bad, I don't even know where to start. But we're seeing this all over the place. I've read several articles of different school districts giving up on the electric buses because they're too expensive to operate, or they don't work in the cold, or they don't work. It takes too long for them to charge, and they have to use a diesel bus to finish a route. You know, whenever a bus is late to school, this is something else. Again, I used to work for both Laidlaw and then Durham School Services. Okay, both are bus companies, school bus contractors, more specifically. Every time a bus is late to school, the public school district fines the bus company. So every time these buses are late, and this is probably what they're talking about right here, this other number, this $372,100 is probably fines from the school district. And then they go on to say that it came up to another 2.1 million. Those are most likely school district fines for the buses not making it on time. So another fleet mothballed. And my favorite one, of course, is the electric snowplows in New York that didn't work at all. That, again, those cost another 3 to 4 times, 3 to 4 times their diesel counterparts. And they didn't work. And you know, once that battery dies in the cold, it's not going to charge. So you've got to tow it. Lest we forget what happened in Illinois this past winter when thousands of electric vehicles were stranded all over the state because they couldn't charge. And then just in case, says you would think they would have started off with maybe a handful of these electric buses first to see how it works. Stupidity. Well, because it's all bought in. It's all bought in. Okay? This is what they've done. This is what they've done. They've got untested materials out there. The electric vehicle, it doesn't work the way that it's supposed to. But it's been forced on us, and this perpetuates forcing it on us. Windmills don't work the way that they're supposed to, or the way that they've been projected. Solar panels don't work the way that they've been projected. And I did a dedicated video on that not too long ago. Not that anybody saw it, on Coffee Talk. The plastic, I did a video on that. You can't recycle plastic. You can't. They've been lying to us for 50 years. And I got that information right from the EPA and did a video on it. They've been lying for 50 years about recycling. Still trying to force us to recycle, telling us we're saving the planet. It's bullshit. Urban says they should have publicized who owns these, quote, green companies. No kidding. And a warning to those of you who are involved with USAA. I'll just throw this up here. I don't know if I'll read the whole article, but I just want to make the point here. Because this is surfacing again, and this is a MoneyWise article. Little consumer warning with USAA. If it ever comes up, come on, Restream, give me a break. It says it's a nightmare. More and more USAA members who lost thousands are sharing their stories of fraud and say they now lost trust in the bank. Bottom line, without digging too deep into this article, I mean, I'll read the bullet points and I'll make my point. It says because a lot of this is people talking about what happened to them, and there is a Facebook group dedicated to this. Essentially, USAA customers have been going into their accounts and finding no money, $0.00. And the money was transferred out. And the reason, Zayfiel, he says you can burn it to recycle it for fuel. Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about sending it to a recycling plant so they can make new plastic, and 95% of it gets shredded and sent to the landfill because it's not viable for recycling. There's very limited amount of certain types of plastic can actually be technically melted down and regrafted into something else, and usually not more than once. Like when you buy bottles of water and it says single use bottle, that doesn't mean you drink it once and throw it away or recycle it. That means that bottle can't be recycled and it needs to be sent to the landfill. But yeah, you can burn it for fuel. I wouldn't inhale near it because that stuff is toxic. The smoke's toxic. But yeah, any smoke is dangerous anyways. But what happened with USAA in a nutshell is that their own telephone services, their own customer service representatives were stealing account information from people and working with people on the outside who were tapping into the accounts and transferring money on people. All right. And the reason that there's news articles warning about this and why there's Facebook groups dedicated to people pooling together to try to combat USAA is because they've shown little, if any, interest in helping people to sort it out, in trying to get people's money back and trying to sort out what happened. I mean, as far as I know, they've terminated some people, but they're not actually helping anyone, or are reluctant anyways to help anyone to get their money back, which is really dirty pool. If it happened on their watch with their employees, they're responsible. And they're acting like that's not a thing, like they don't seem to care. And people have had a really difficult time in recovering funds. So if you have a USAA account, keep an eye on it. Keep an eye on it, because I know a lot of veterans like using USAA. You don't need that messed with after what you may have given. This is really important. This next one, I get this from PRD podcast. I'm borrowing these images from it. I want to share them with you because they stumbled on something that's really interesting here. They stumbled on something really interesting here. I'm going to try to blow this graph up bigger so that you can see it more clearly, okay? And where is this from? This is Wisconsin. Is it Maryland? Michigan. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia. These are graphs from Wisconsin, Michigan, and Georgia. And it's kind of hard to read. Helta says it seems like nothing happens until a news station exposes the corporation. No kidding. This is very important. All right, this next thing. I know, preaching to the choir. Can't trust your government. Big surprise. These two graphs, okay? The graph on the left is the state of Michigan. These are the voting records for the 2024 election. Okay, you see the trend? Red is Trump, blue is Biden. The graph on the right is Wisconsin. Again, red is Trump, blue is Biden. And you see that Trump was in a lead on both of them. Then it was a dead heat, and then Biden comes up on top and flatlines. Out of nowhere, suddenly there's 100,000 extra votes. Bam, he's on top. Okay? Both of these graphs are very similar, aren't they? But wait, there's more. Look at the Georgia election graph, which is the graph on the right there. Oh, and here's Fluke, man. Glad you could make it. And Zayfiel says, I wonder if management at USAA weren't in on it. Plausible deniability for the scumbags, and they get compensated on the back end somewhere. That's possible. There's the Georgia graph. Does that look like the other two graphs? The graphs from Michigan and Wisconsin? Very similar, right? Trump's ahead. Then suddenly 100,000 votes appear out of nowhere. Bam. And then it's a dead heat, and then Biden's on top. right? And I'll show you the top two charts again. Very similar trend. Okay. Part of the reason why a lot of people think something funny happened with Dominion, right? Now here's the clincher. And again, I got to credit PBD Podcasting for these images. Look at the graph on the left now. Venezuela. This is the election that just happened. You notice a similar trend? Notice anything funny there? Kind of looks like the other two graphs, right? And all using the same voting technology. And I'll hang your hat on that. This is the election that just happened in Venezuela. Bam, another 100,000 or so votes out of nowhere. Nature Nerd says, wouldn't it be cheaper to keep the same diesel buses as long as possible instead of selling them for cheap and buying more all the time? Actually, no. And the reason is, from my own experience driving those buses, those things rattle apart after a while. Once you're getting close to 100,000 miles, you're driving a birdcage. They're shaking and rattling and vibrating constantly. Things are starting to fail on the bus. It would cost more to continue to try to repair the bus than it would to be to cut your losses and sell it and buy a new one, ultimately. So as a safety factor, when it reached a certain, and I forget where it was, I think it's like 120,000 miles, if I remember correctly. I think Durham was 120,000 miles. That number sticks in my head. That when it reaches a certain mileage point, they figure, yeah, maintenance and repair costs and safety concerns are too much. Let someone else deal with it. And whoever wants to buy it for 10 cents on the dollar can deal with it. And apparently Mexico doesn't give a shit. So they buy the majority of them from Durham. I don't know who the hell Laidlaw sold theirs to. And I don't know if the same rule applies with the electric buses. I don't know what the cutoff point is on the electric buses, but yeah, they vibrate like no tomorrow driving them. After a while, you're bouncing all over the place. Screws are falling out. Yeah, they take a hell of a beating. But yeah, this is very, very important to consider, these graphs. Again, Michigan. I said Michigan, right? Did I read that correctly? Wisconsin and Georgia, the graphs are almost identical. And then Venezuela, it's a different type of chart, but the graph is identical. And Sven says the numbers are past any possible anomaly. It's past 10 to the 17th, which is far beyond possibility. Which is why I needed to point this out. This is very important for people to consider. Brian says the drivers feel bad that they're taking the kids to public school every day. Yeah, no kidding. I felt bad. I felt bad. I felt bad about it. Keep this in mind and I'm referring again back to PBD. That's P as in Paul, B as in Baker, D as in Dad. PBD podcast are the ones that exposed this. A vote update. Yeah, it is Michigan. Michigan, Wisconsin, and Georgia. At the last second, at 11 hours and 58 minutes and counting, a sudden jump of about 100,000, and suddenly, in 3 key states, suddenly he's ahead and he stays there. Same thing happened in Venezuela. Very suspicious. And again, same type of voting technology was used. And you know what I mean by that. And Fluke says they can sell the buses to some guy who wants to bury them underground to build a bunker or shelter. Bad idea. Bad idea. Nature Nerd says, where's all the money for our schools gone since America spends more than any other country on schools? Surely it's not teachers' salaries. Teachers don't get paid that badly. They really don't. We've talked about that a few times. The salary, it varies from state to state, but it's a pretty decent minimum wage job. It's a crappy working environment, but they know what they're getting themselves into. So, you know, if they don't like it, they should leave. But yeah, it's a huge money pit, and you know how I feel about that. But with that, we are at the top of the hour. So I will go ahead and start signing off. Again, you were listening to and or watching Coffee Talk, and you can find the live portion Monday through Friday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Coffee Talk and Prepper University. And that is at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University. You can find me on X at Coffee Talk Chat. And you can find me on fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta. So thank you, everybody who was able to join us here today. I hope you got something out of the conversation.